Classic Plus has more problems than you think. Um, Problems. I mean, I did think there's a lot of things they can make it better, but let's see.
Classic Plus has more problems than you think.
As we progress through Wrath Classic, I can't help but notice a rise in interest for the vanilla version of the game beginning to grow within the player base.
Like
I
the
think
original.
a lot of players would happily jump back to a vanilla version of the game given good timing and a concept which looks promising.
Yeah.
But as
I agree.
usual, Blizzard
Yeah,
holds
I
all
would do
the
it too.
cards here. And of course it's worth a mention, we don't know what's after Seasonal Mastery right now, and Classic Plus is totally just a community wish at this point in time. Yet while
That's how
Seasonal
Classic
Mastery is
started,
soon to wind up, we can't
Yeah,
help but
exactly.
ask, what's next? Another season with more new ideas, a no changes fresh, or perhaps something much more ambitious? Since the early days of Classic, players have speculated what will come when the final boss of the expansion falls over, and everyone is there in their near-abyss gear twiddling their thumbs waiting for the next big content patch to drop. One of those ideas has always been Classic Plus, an unofficial term from the players, broadly meaning Classic, but instead of expansions to move us forwards into
Seasons.
TBC and beyond, there are new major content patches added instead, or just
I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Like, I'd be straight up. It would really, really surprise me if they did something like that. Just because it's way harder than just doing like unique seasons.
I think major content patches and then also raids that might give slightly better gear. It's actually easier to make better classic gear than like better retail WoW gear because you're dealing with a lot of cases just with percentages.
He's right, but I still think like if I was on the classic like team and where your job is to try to make people play the game or more people play the game, I would lean way more into adding mechanics and changing up things in the existing game versus creating new content for that game. Because I think retail already does that to an extent. So I don't think that's really necessary. I think what Classic WoW has, it has a ton of content. I think they could do more with it, like with the existing content.
Like 1% crit is 1% crit. 2% is 2%.
You know, it would be cool if there was a season in WoW that had like the Paragon system from like D3, Diablo 3, like where once you hit max level, you can keep leveling, and then you could increase like your crit chance, move speed, crit damage, all that, like basically your stats and stuff, little by little with each Paragon level. I think that would be really cool, where it eventually, like, if you did it for a long time, you could literally like solo raids in that server or in that season. I think that would be really interesting.
updates to the game in the spirit of Classic. What if we never crossed the Dark Portal? What
That or like a season of like tier sets where they just try to add tier sets to like every dungeon, even if it's like it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like to me, like seasons, they shouldn't like go with like things that make a lot of sense. If it does it sound fun, try it. Like I would really, really, really wish they did that because I would actually go back and play this game like a lot more.
What if there were new raids or new dungeons and anything else you can think of? After all, we have retail, we have Classic WoW as it currently is, which is chugging along through the expansions. Give it 18 more months from now and we'll be in Cataclysm Classic, I expect. Vanilla ran its course faster than it did originally, so did TBC by some 6 months, and Wrath will probably be a little bit shorter overall too. Sure. These are the places to re-experience expansions as they once were, so why not turn seasonal World of Warcraft into something different? Something entirely innovative with new content phases and regular updates. Why?
Like I said, I don't think they're going to do that. Like I mean, maybe they would, because obviously Classic is way more popular than I think they even expected. But at the same time, I just, from a business perspective, as someone like, I don't know how to explain it right. It's like, okay, you got to make choices on getting the most bang out of your buck, basically, right? So to get players hyped about WoW, yes, content would work, but also what would work is changing up the way the game plays. I know a lot of people would go back to WoW if they did something like I mentioned earlier, like a Paragon system of sorts.
Why not go all in and do Classic Plus? Well, the pessimist will say it will cost money, time, and effort to work on something new, so
Not the pessimist. That's the freaking obvious argument.
obviously that's not gonna happen, is it? And
I
yeah,
think it would probably cost less money to do classic content versus like retail WoW content.
It would cost less money, but it would also generate less money. So that's not much of an argument.
I mean, it's just lower poly. There's less stuff to do with the game. The game is simpler. Why? Well, simply like you just don't have to make things as detailed.
is going to be a part of that, to be honest. Why take an unnecessary risk when you can just re-release expansions that you know people will come back for? But I think there's actually more to it than that. There's a bigger picture of problems that need.
And I want to say it now, like, I don't think that new content for like vanilla WoW or classic WoW is bad. I think it would be really cool. I just don't see them doing it. Like, just, I don't know if like being pessimistic is the right word. I don't think that's the right word. I think being realistic would be a better word. Because this is Blizzard we're talking about. They don't exactly have a track record of like, what would the players really like? Let's do that no matter the cost. You know what I mean? Warcraft 3 Reforged. Don't really need to say more after that.
Need to be addressed if Classic Plus were to actually be taken seriously.
Okay, let's
and
see
for
it.
me, these are my 3 biggest problems with Classic Plus. But first, a word from today's sponsor,
right.
Gemstone Legends, a high fantasy puzzle style RPG game rated 4.6 stars on Android and almost 5 on iOS. You can download the game and try for free using the link in the description or the QR code on screen. Gemstone Legends has a puzzle style element of game, but also hero collection with more than 200 heroes from 8 different factions and 5 different tiers. Every hero has a unique set of skills which can be a game changer for strategy for each battle. During the puzzle battles, you can use epic combo attacks in your tactical sense, solving match 3 puzzles and conquering powerful monsters to build your empire. And there's dragons. Who doesn't like dragons? Gather clans as heroes and start an epic puzzle adventure in a high fantasy RPG open world. Fight in PvP modes and align with other dragon riders to compete in guild wars. There's even a Discord server where you can stay up to date with the game. I'm in the game under the nickname WillE. Download the game for free now on both Android and iOS and get started today by using the link in the description or the QR code on screen. You'll also get a special starter pack worth $50 by using my link, including 500,000 coins, 300 gems, 10 mana elixirs, 10 healing elixirs, and a 4-star hero, Annika. Many thanks to Gemstone Legends for sponsoring the video today. Back to WoW. The first point is, I've already done the content. Let me explain what I mean here. There was a time in World of Warcraft where it wasn't really known how far the game would go, what would be the next major content patch, and even whether there were going to be expansions. On a BlizzCon panel from 2007, I found something which really spoke to how Blizzard did content back then. Plan more than we can build, expect change, adapt. There wasn't just content ideas for the next patch or patch after that. There were just ideas that various devs wanted to be part of the game. Things which
I think that's, I mean, anybody could have seen that, because like remember how they had like they had like the Dragon Isles in classic WoW. They had like Karazhan Crypts. They had all of these things like Hydra
that were just like empty.
Like, yeah, that's of course what happened. And then also like apparently they were supposed to have like some like Abyss raid that was underwater and Cataclysm.
Oh,
and that ended up just not happening.
They had worked upon and iterated upon. It was more of a question of where does this best fit within the game. After all, World of Warcraft in its early days had pretty heavy inspiration from the story of the RTS games to lean on. There were hours of cutscenes, cinematics and story twists to draw from. It just had to be the right time to introduce each one. In fact, in its early days, the level cap of vanilla was intended to be 70, and so much content that would be introduced with the expansion was either planned or actively was already being worked on.
Yeah,
Here's another bit from they
had a vanilla WoW version of the Outland. even.
BlizzCon 2007 panel. I know the quality's mega scuffed. I couldn't find better online, unfortunately, but you can make out at the top that this was the
Dead
dungeon
Mines.
list as planned from
Shadowfang
April
Keep.
2003. That's pre-vanilla launch, and right at the bottom you can see the Black Temple as the final dungeon. It wasn't that content was necessarily cut from vanilla, it just wasn't used, and it was waiting its turn. It's no wonder that Karazhan is located in Deadwind Pass, by the way, a strange place for an expansion raid to still be in vanilla, don't you think?
Yeah.
This
I think that was
location and
good.
raid was in development long before TBC dropped. In fact, this dungeon would have almost put Blackrock Depths to shame, estimated in its earliest version to be as large as Lower Blackrock and Upper Blackrock Spire combined, and having a load time of 30 minutes. Tons of
Holy
work have been
fuck.
done on the interior.
Load time of 30 minutes? I just don't see that. Like 30 minutes seems like an over exaggeration. Because anything above a 3 minutes, like I could imagine 10 minutes. Because 10 minutes for a load time is pretty insane.
The layout, texturing, and I have to say the early versions, especially from the outside, look particularly ominous.
Yeah,
Not
that looks
forgetting
really
the
cool.
Karazhan crypts either.
I had no
a
idea
series
about
of
that. I'd never seen
spooky,
that before.
sprawling tunnels below the tower,
Yeah.
housing endless stone walls and restless bones. Again, an area that had begun to be fleshed out from a level design point of
Yep.
view, and it was partially used
Sunken
during
Temple
the
was like
Karazhan
that too.
achievement in TBC, but never saw the proper light of day as its own piece of content. Mount Hyjal is
Yeah,
another
all of
one
this
to
stuff
highlight.
should be in Classic WoW, like Classic WoW Plus. Like, add all of this stuff, give us a Scarlet Crusade raid, stuff like this.
In vanilla, it had a raid
That
instance
could be cool.
portal
I
connecting
just
it to the Dark
have a
Whisper
feeling it just
Gorge in
won't
Southern
happen.
Winter Spring. It was another zone with a bunch of work that had been put into it, which just never released in vanilla. Again, we saw it in a lot more detail during the Burning Crusade as a raid, and eventually reimagined as a zone during Cataclysm. Even the Hellfire Peninsula had work put into it during
There it is.
vanilla.
Yep.
Again, it was planned to be a later game zone
I
that
like
would
those,
eventually ship with
those
TBC.
mushrooms.
You can see tons of landscaping and floating
Kinda
mushrooms
gives me
dominating
Oblivion
the area
vibes.
in these early screenshots.
mushrooms.
Though at some point it was decided that instead of more and more major content patches, there would be a full-on expansion. Many of these unused ideas were roped together and bundled up for World of Warcraft's first foray into a totally new world. This would release in 2007 as the Burning Crusade, to a huge amount of success. And as we know now, Black Temple, Karazhan, and Mount Hyjal ended up being raiding content, and Hellfire Peninsula was the starting zone. I know this, and we all know this, because many of us have done them in TBC or TBC Classic,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what I mean when I say I've already done the content. Tons of things that were at an idea stage were later used in some form. Even the Dragon Isles were at a
I think it wouldn't really be a big deal to do it over again if the game had a few little interesting nuances with leveling and it was a very dense and populated area where you could do dungeons and do other kinds of cool shit.
Yeah.
concept stage during vanilla, and that's
Like it'd be cool if like they just say in a season, like there's like several things they can do with seasons. Like just off the top of my head I thought of a few, but it's like I think one of them would be fun is just having like way more world bosses. Like get the bosses from dungeons and raids and put them out in the world. Just for fun. Oh. Second.
just dropped as the latest retail expansion. The thing is, as much as I like Karazhan, do I want to do it again at 60 with the same layout and the same bosses
No.
and the same
No.
loot that I already know? I'm not really sure that I do. What if
Only if there's extra things to it. Like I don't know. Like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but what he's saying, like in terms of like the layout and stuff, like I don't think that would make much of a difference for people. Like if you kind of changed out the layout, it's like it'd be interesting like the first 2 times you do it, if that.
Well, absolutely not. I mean, like, they would have to reimagine the entire thing. Like, obviously, you should have some of the same bosses. Like, Moros should be in the new Karazhan. Let's see.
Yeah, they're not going to do it though.
Like-
Honestly, I think they're like fan fiction what they believe, you know, what they would want in a sense, which I don't really think is a problem, but I think being realistic about it, like it's not going to solve or do anything by like give us content in WoW Classic. It's just I just don't see it happening, man.
Like, I think a good example of this, right, is like they did already reimagine Karazhan. They did it in Legion.
Yeah,
And I think the Legion reimagining of Karazhan, the Return to Karazhan
it's
raid, was
pretty
fucking
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was really well done. There were some things I didn't like about it, but overall I thought it was really well designed. So it's like, we already have precedent of doing this and it being good. Just do it again.
Karazhan was different.
Well, they did it as a content patch for the retail game. That's what I mean. Like, the things they're asking for, if they were going to do it, they would do it for the retail game. They wouldn't do it for Classic WoW, is all I'm saying.
Maybe that could work instead. During Legion, Blizzard reimagined Karazhan as a two-part mega dungeon, which kept aspects from the past while making it fit better into the newer game.
Exactly.
I think one of the draws of a Classic Plus for me isn't just seeing stuff that we come to see eventually, but more something new, unexplored. Hyjal, as it's set out in vanilla, has never been a zone, for example. What if that was to happen? If people came into a Classic Plus finally and just felt as though they had already done it and already seen it, that would be quite a letdown, I think.
Yeah.
The second point I want to get into is,
I don't know. I mean, that they did it. A lot of the people who went to play Classic, when Classic WoW released, like, those people had played the game before. Let's be fair, it's not like a ton of new players who had never played the game. I would say over 60%, maybe even over 80%, were people who had played the game prior. So to me, that's not much of an argument.
where does the new content go? Where does it fit? This is kind of a tangent to the question of how would servers be released. I'm assuming if it would happen, they would be fresh, which makes the most sense to me. World of Warcraft is always fun when you start from square zero, but then you have to ask, if there is new content, where does the new stuff go? Imagine the scenario. Classic Plus is here. Fresh servers are out. Mega hype. New content, new class tuning, new dungeons, new raid, new everything. Okay, so first we have to get to level 60.
Yes.
Oh, wait. Before we get to level 60, are we going to be doing any new dungeons pre-60?
Yes, absolutely. They would have to reimagine a lot of the dungeons and make them more interesting.
So that's what I was saying. Like, it's just not worth the cost of that. Like, Asmon thinks, I don't know if he knows much about game development, but like, the models themselves aren't like the expensive part a lot of times. That's usually not that bad. It's usually like, it's everything involved. It's not just the models.
But also, like, not make them, like, I don't think that they should go and make Classic WoW harder. I think the reason why Classic WoW is popular is because it's not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do
for
that.
a lot of people.
Like, just make the dungeons more interesting, add in a few nuances to them, add in new loot, maybe a couple of optional hard mode bosses, kind of, like something similar to that, and just do that, and I think you'd be fine. That's all they really need to do.
I mean, what's the point, right? You don't replay dungeons again and again pre-60 unless they are the best for either XP or gold farming, which means the new content kinda has to be better than the existing content, or it's going to be instantly run one time by people questing and then not seen again. Does that...
Not necessarily. So, for example, if you added a couple of pieces of gear that increased your experience, and you could only get those pieces of gear inside of the dungeon, and it would increase your experience for, like, 20 levels or something until, like, they're, like, you're level 40 and it's only level 20. I think that would get people to continue doing and farming the dungeons. Yeah, there are a lot of ways that you could make this work.
I mean, it's similar to what he just said, though. Like, Asmon just did a roundabout way of doing it, is make it where it's worth your time. Whether it's from leveling a perspective, gear perspective. It's the same thing. Like, make it worth your time to do these new dungeons, and people will do them. But at the same time, like I said, I'm just stuck on this like thought. I'm like, think of like almost every game that has seasons, PoE, Diablo 3, mostly RPGs, I guess, but like, it's usually not like really new content that they release. It's pretty rare that they do releases in terms of content. Usually they just do something interesting. Like, I'm trying to think of like what they could do, and I thought of like another thing where maybe, anytime you beat a boss, they have a chance of dropping an item that lets you summon like a harder version of that boss for even more loot, or a stronger version of whatever loot they normally drop. I think that'd be pretty cool too. But I'm always in the perspective of how can we make the content that's already there fun again? Kind of give it a fresh coat of paint in a sense. Because I just don't see them adding content, and I don't want it to where, people keep asking for it, and Blizzard's like, well, we'd rather just release the game, the games as is, versus adding content. So basically, I'm trying to steer it away from that topic only because I don't see it happening. So I don't want Blizzard to think like, oh, this is what they want, but we don't really want to do that. So ignore them in a sense. In that way, when the conversation doesn't go to adding mechanics, which is much easier, at least in my opinion, because they've already changed a lot of mechanics in Classic WoW. So it's like, to me, I don't see why that would be more difficult than adding content. Because content is usually also adding mechanics to it, right?
Warrant the development time when it could be put into something at endgame instead. What about a new zone? If it's for leveling it again, people will do it once per character, if it's worth doing. There are some gaps in vanilla questing, I will say that, so maybe there is space to beef up the leveling journey a little bit. How about raids? Imagine phase 1 is...
I think if they were going to beef up the leveling journey, what I'd want them to do is like kind of reimagine Deadwind Pass to be like in between like Duskwood, or like in between like Red Ridge Mountains and Duskwood, or in between Duskwood and Stranglethorn Vale. And just add in also, like, you don't even need to add in a new zone for leveling, just add in better quests. Yeah. Add in like 10 more quests in every zone. Done.
I agree.
Add in rare spawns that give you a bunch of experience whenever you kill them. Add in something like that.
Yeah, those are all good ones. I was actually thinking about that was add some like interesting quest chains that like are really more into the lore.
How many months of that do we have to do before we get a new bit of content? What if there was a new raid and it came between Molten Core and Blackwing Lair? Well, it has to raise the bar for gear a little, so again, it's worth doing. Maybe if we throw in a few bists, weapons, trinkets, whatever it may be in there, that'll get people going back to it. But then suddenly, oh no, Blackwing Lair itself has come out, in addition to Molten Core, the new raid, and Onyxia. And on a weekly basis, then you would be doing Onyxia for the tier head and the quest turn-ins, Molten Core for Eye of Shadow, leaves, bindings, and all the other items in there, Blackwing Lair for your rejuve gems, your DFTs, and whatever else, and the new raid for the BIS items in there too. That's a lot of raiding, but then AQ40s come out, and suddenly about 90% of the old gear is now irrelevant, but you're still going to have to do them on raid night because there's like 3 BIS items which everyone in the game wants, because that's how classic itemization works. Until Nax is out, of course, and then your raid is tired of doing an entire world tour every week. Also, Nax gear is kind of an insane step up over everything else. And
Nax gear was disgusting. Like, it was just so much better than everything else that came before it. There was like a handful of pieces of gear before then that was better, but in general, it was fucking insane. I think that what they should really do is look at making a few more raids in between that, make more dungeons. Like, having the baseline raiding gear, why don't you just change some of the gear? Change Shadow Strike. Change the fucking... That
was actually going to be one of the things I was going to mention, was maybe tweak the tier sets to be, just to be different.
Mace, Finkel's Mace from Molten Core. Change Spinal Reaper. Spinal Reaper is a garbage weapon. Nobody ever uses it. Well, then change it and make it something better. Add in new items that are more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, make
that actually would be much
useful,
easier than adding like dungeons or raids.
That's vanilla with hypothetically only one more raid tier added. The alternative
like,
is...
I think that, like, for example, right? Like, let's say you have a Scarlet Crusade raid, and after you get Corrupted Ashbringer, you then go and you can purify your Corrupted Ashbringer after you clear the Scarlet Crusade raid. That would be fucking awesome.
That new raids are added after Nax, which solves absolutely nothing, because if servers are fresh, that's 12 or however many months of no new raid content up to Nax, and if it's not fresh, players will go into the new raid with 25 BIS geared warriors and absolutely delete it, and all the raid content prior to the new raid.
This is actually a very good point, because if you give people the ability to get a bunch of these characters geared out, you either have to design it to where you need 20 warriors, or you have to design it to where 20 warriors will clear the raid in 20 minutes. to just balance classes, I think they should do that. Like, I'm a
Yeah,
very big
I agree.
advocate of balancing classes in a very subtle way in Classic Plus. I think they should already be experimenting in this right now. Like, for example, I think they should give...
It kind of surprised me they didn't do it for the classic. Like, I know they did some things to like quality of life stuff, but it's like there was such a big disparity in classes, especially in DPS. It just blew my mind that they didn't even look at
Ret
it.
Paladin's Crusader Strike. I think they should give, let's see, they should probably give Moonkin something to get more mana return or something like that. They should give Shadow Priest something that makes them a little bit more interesting, where it's like not like a debuff cap, same as Affliction Warlocks.
Oh yeah,
They need
debuff
to
cap
make
should have been
different
removed.
specs more viable, and they also should balance the other specs and make them better.
Raids would also kind of be dead on arrival. So where does the new content fit here? That's the question I really don't have an answer for. Whatever happens, there would be very clear downsides to it, I think. But maybe just getting something new is worth it all the same. Those are my two main concerns so far. Number one, I've already done the content. Number two, where would the new content go? And number three for me is about how World of Warcraft content is consumed, how the game is designed, and the development time that goes into creating new things for the game. So if you've played World of Warcraft for a while, you'll know what the end of expansion life cycle looks like. Sometimes it's up to, or in certain cases, over 1 year of literally nothing new. With Classic, we know the devs are building the game on...
I think what they should do is they should look at what made RuneScape and OSRS have evergreen type content. And this is my opinion as somebody who is not an expert in this, but one of the things that made RuneScape and not EverQuest, I forgot the other example I was going to use. Oh yeah, Vanilla WoW. Like, look at why they were popular. Massive, super long quest lines. Things like the Mage Tower, where they have like that Inferno thing in OSRS, and like these different things that you have in the game, to where like these are pinnacles of accomplishment that you want to build your character up to be able to overcome. So it's not like just raiding; it's also like singular player overcoming content. And it's like you get gear from raiding, and then you use that to do like a Mage Tower type thing. Yeah, the Infernal Cape, right? And that's the kind of stuff that keeps the game alive. Yeah, good solo content. And again, like, I know this seems like really weird and like counterintuitive, but yes, I think solo content is super important for an MMO.
To a more modern system, and that unfortunately they can't just boot up Wrath of the Lich King.exe and it magically all works. Hence all the beta and PTR testing and brand new bugs and weird things going wrong occasionally.
My favorite part is whenever bugs from the original game happen, like auto attacking Saffron through the block, the ice block, and then the explosion's still killing you. This happened in Vanilla WoW, it happened in in Wrath, and it's still happening. I don't know how they can't fix this. I'll be right back.
And I've noticed that the more WoW expansions have gone on, there tends to be more and more lead time between the new major patches. Whatever's going on in the background, it's just taking more time. On top of this, World of Warcraft content has a very short life cycle, and this is much more noticeable in the earlier versions of the game. This is what happens when you progress vertically as new content is stacked on top of one another. I will say this was less the case during Vanilla. You wanted to go back and do the old raids, but in TBC and especially Wrath, there's just a lot more of do the current tier and then you're kind of done for the week. Add on top.
I've always thought that it was good for older raids to still have some good items. There's always going to be like a negative and a positive with almost everything, but in general, I think that's a good thing.
For this, that the content being added has to raise the bar in one way or another, or it just won't be worth doing. And if there's something new, they have to make sure it's actually worth going to. I see many cases where Classic Pluses mention that Blizzard should take inspiration from the success of Jagex with old school RuneScape, which in theory is great. It's proof that new content can keep a game fresh and bring a whole new player base into the game and interested for years to come. But the similarities between old school RuneScape and World of Warcraft stop at them being called MMORPGs. If Molten Core was a raid in old old school RuneScape, you'd have to defeat 40 servants of the Fire Lord outside of the instance before you could gain access. Each time you will be able to solo it, all the good drops will be 100 times rarer, everything will be tradable, the auction house is global, there's no weekly reset, and you can just spam it non-stop, and you would be able to do it with a team if you wanted. On top of that, old school Rune...
Okay.
I think for a season, why
Sounds
not
good.
try it?
Okay. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, why not?
RuneScape doesn't really even have a concept of endgame which is clearly defined. You don't get level cap, then start playing. The actual cap in terms of having every skill at maximum level is not something many people have. Content there can remain relevant for years as nearly all gear is tradable. You still have reasons to go back like gold farming, collection logs, Iron Man accounts where they can't trade, and so on and so forth. And leveling there takes considerably longer, so people do invest in different tiers of gear, and you're going to be getting so much more use out of them.
Vanilla took a while.
An example of this is within 1 year of launching, Jagex realized that old school RuneScape wasn't going to survive off pure nostalgia, and they started releasing brand new content. One of the first big new updates was in January 2015. This was about 2 years after launch. This was Zulrah, yes.
Again, solo content. Like solo content that players in MMOs can benchmark themselves and say, I'm better than you because I can beat this guy and you can't.
Yeah.
Zulrah is 8 years old, a solo boss that added a bunch of new items and mechanics to the game. Today, it still drops items that people would want to chase, and it's an okay gold farm, but it has been nerfed many times over. The point is, this is true across so many of RuneScape's updates. When Ulduar drops in Wrath, am I gonna do tier 7 again? Realistically, I think so, yeah, I'll still be doing Malagos and Sartharian's Lair, but just not full clears anymore. I haven't done a single Burning Crusade raid during Wrath, and during TBC, I didn't do a single full Classic raid either. It's just...
I don't think you should have to. I think that expansions are resets.
I agree.
I think in general, you should be able to use the gear at the
beginning of the expansion, like to level up, do dungeons, all that good stuff, like make it easier. But I really do not think you should make it where like the raid gear from the previous expansion actually is as good as like the new raid gear. Like that to me is just, I don't know. Could play Guild Wars 2 if that's what you're into, because that's exactly what that is.
The end of the expansion to progress in the raid in the new expansion, kind of like how Burning Crusade, like vanilla went into Burning Crusade. But I don't think that you should have to go back and raid ZG or something like that when it's Burning Crusade, unless you're looking for a mount.
Yeah. Or transmog.
It's not how World of Warcraft works. There's very little reason to go back.
Yeah.
Sure, there's a few mounts such as Rivendare's Death Charger from Stratum Dead, or these Zul'Gurub mounts that may be worth chasing for some collectors, but in the latter example, not even every class in the game can physically do that. I think you can start to see why Blizzard put transmog in the game and made old raids soloable. Keeping old content relevant is something that Blizzard has, in the grand scheme of things, recently made significant improvements too. There's Chromie time. Pick any expansion you want to level in. Baited raids. Go back and do previous raids from the expansion in a different way.
Oh my god, bro. Y'all remember this fucking shit? It's like, why did they hit the Barghast stats? Why did they hit the Barghast ads? Like I said, don't hit the Barghast ads. But there's 2 dots on the ads. How did they get there? How I thought we said not to do that. Why does it have corruption on it? Like, that was the most upsetting fucking shit, man. I was so mad. We never cleared this either.
Time walking, go into old dungeons or raid, collect resources, buy collectibles, adding pets to old raids, adjusting tuning so old raids can be soloed for collections, and so on. I just can't help but think Classic Plus is going to have a big dead content problem due to how content rolls out during the early versions of WoW and how fast players
rebalance the gear. Problem solved.
I was going to say rebalance the raid as well.
Just rebalance the fucking gear. That's all you have to do.
Get through it all. Again, I'd love to hear suggestions on this. All that being said, don't get me wrong, I would love to see Classic Plus in the game as a real thing and for Blizzard to take this in a whole new direction. And whilst the whole "it'll take money so they won't do it" thing definitely has something to it, I think there's a lot more important things to be answered than just that. For Classic Plus to really work, it might not just be about adding the new content, but entirely rethinking the formula that makes people actually like Classic in the first place. Thanks once again to Gemstone Legends for sponsoring today. You can check it out via the link in the description or the QR code on screen. Let me know your thoughts on the 3 points I've gone over.
So I think 3 points are honestly kind of crap. I'm not saying like it's bad. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think it's worth a conversation in a sense. But I'm thinking back, like, so for example, private servers for vanilla WoW have always been a thing. They've always been pretty popular as well. Even up to like before, even on like good expansions like Legion, they were still thriving just fine. And I did play a few of them. And some of them had their own like little things that try to make it more interesting, like you can get drop rates increase, EXP rates increase, and I would say like sometimes they'll have it where like you could go beyond the original like 60. You could just keep leveling and like keep going kind of thing. Or you could buff an item like a ring, or items I should say, beyond what its original drop was. You know what I mean? Like you can +1 it, +2, and so on and so forth. Similar to like the honing system in Lost Ark, but there was no like failure rate. You just needed the materials for it. Like I think doing stuff like that would keep Classic WoW going. I don't think they need to add more content. I think later down the road, after they've kind of exhausted what they can do with the mechanics, would make more sense.
Is there a clear answer out there to this, or is it going to involve a lot of compromising? In any event, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.
I think what they need to do is they need to make a PTR and they need to start shooting. Just start putting ideas out there. Put something out there, it's fucking stupid. See how people respond. If they don't like it, delete it.
Just move on.
That's it.
Like PoE kind of does that with their seasons, right? They release seasons with like kind of weird stuff, like interesting ideas. And if it sticks, they put it in the main game. If it doesn't, they just move on, which I think WoW should really try.
Still waiting for Season of Mastery 2. It needs to be way different from Classic. Yeah, I know. Like, the reason why I didn't play Season of Mastery 1 is because why the fuck do I want to go and play a harder version of Molten Core to get the same belt? It's the same belt. I already had this belt. It was easier. Now it's the same fucking belt.
It would be interesting if they made it harder, but then the gear was like upgraded to correspond with that. But I don't think they should do that.
Like, give it more stats. Give it something like that. Like, give us an ability to change. Like, for example, like what if they had, what if Shadow Strike did shadow damage? What if Thunder Strike did lightning damage? Or nature damage? That's too far? Just, yeah, okay, then let's see how far can it go. Let's find out. Yeah, what does that mean? What does too far mean? Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. Yeah, melee mages. Yeah. Let's get some weird shit up in this bitch.
Why not?
Let's have a little bit of fun. That's the way I see it, man. What do you think about seasonal abyss? Accommodate gear 2 or 3 per week? I don't know. It depends on what it is. They're so scared to change the game fundamentally. Yeah, let's get fucking weird. There it is. I totally fucking agree, man. Absolutely. That's what Ascension WoW does. Yeah, just, bro, like, that's all they need to do. Just, like, look at some of these, like, Ascension WoW, Turtle WoW. Like, we all know what they are.
Like I said, the private
Blizzard
servers,
knows what they are, too. Just see what they do. See what the things that players, like, respond to. And just be like, just message them. Be like, hey, can you guys send us, like, your fucking, like, your reports on, like, how many people are doing the content, just so, you know, for us to know. And I bet they would probably do it.
Well, if they don't, Blizzard could just close them down.
Because a lot of the people that make Turtle WoW and shit, they probably want Blizzard to make a Classic Plus. It's not like they hate the game. They just don't like where the game is.
Yep, exactly.
Total WoW, so many ideas from beta were removed and made new dungeons and raids. Yeah. What about all old content being current item level, but you can't do it in a current raid? I don't know about that. Total WoW does an awesome job with creating Classic Plus. Yeah, just do the same thing. The issue with Blizzard doing Classic Plus is that it would cost more than $0 to develop. That is a problem. Total WoW
I was gonna say they have trouble hiring GMs. So
is already done. This has been one of the best, most fun times I've had in the game, on par with how much fun I had whenever I experienced the game in 2007. Yeah, just take what they do and do it. It's that simple.
yeah,
Take the stuff that they do that works and put that in the game and then build off of that. Problem solved. Introduce a heroic mode and do some class tuning. Yes, I think that they should absolutely do class tuning. Siege of Nomergon. Yeah, there you go. Let's have to see how far it goes. I love, yeah. Like, this is why I want to see doped Olympics. Let's see the human body on enhancing drugs push the boundaries. Yeah, except for nobody has to die on this. We just get to play the game and like do a little bit more damage. Like
Yeah.
it's totally fine. I don't know, man. Like I'm just hoping something fun happens with Classic WoW. I like Classic WoW
I agree.
a lot, but I wish
Yeah.
that there was more to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't really play Classic WoW too much because it really wasn't different than what I remembered. So that's why I didn't really bother with it. But at the same time, like, I have been waiting for, like, when Season of Mastery kind of came out, I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're going to do something cool. And then I see what they did. And that's stupid. Like, it's just, it's not stupid, but it's like, it's boring. Like, why would you do this? They should have done something, even if it was dumb, like, interesting.
And there was like something new to look forward to.
Yeah.
To have something like the Ascension private server with resources like Blizzard has. Yeah, exactly, man. Huge potential in this. Yeah, I think Classic Plus has more potential than retail WoW.
I would disagree. Just because that's a weird thing to say. WoW Plus has more potential than retail WoW. The difference is like retail WoW has way more to pull from than classic. Like it could go almost anywhere because it's not contained to just Azeroth. Like you have Outlands, you have Northrend, like you have like anything and everything you can pull from in WoW. While vanilla WoW just literally you are just Azeroth, pretty much vanilla Azeroth as well. Like you don't have Mists of Pandaria or anything like that. So I don't really agree with in terms of like just overall potential. I think it would be it has a lot of potential. I just don't think it has more.
In the long term, I think it does. The reason why is because retail WoW is like zero updates, 18 months, it's growing. Oh yeah, we'll watch this. I'm not gonna watch it today. I'll watch it probably a week later on. The Wrath Plus. I think that they should do Vanilla Plus. Because in Vanilla WoW, you actually went out in the world.
Yeah.
That to me is super fucking important. And if you don't have a reason to go out into the world, you've already lost. You're just and this is what I think happened with like Burning Crusade, is that you had the world like this, and then it became this is the world, and now this is the world, and this is Outland. And then whenever Wrath came out, they said, okay, now this is the world, and this is Northrend. And all of this all of this is deleted. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think what I know what he's saying. He's basically saying like Vanilla WoW had so much content, like especially in the land, like out in the world, that just became obsolete and pointless. So I do agree that they could definitely do more with that. And I think I even kind of mentioned it, like having like world bosses out in the world, just so you're out there like wanting to go out and hunt them down. You know what I mean? Say you get like a big old like Final Fantasy 14 has like a hunt train. It'd be really cool if like WoW had something similar to where like all these players would group up and then go from area to area hunting down the bosses. Like that, I think that would be really fun. I think it should be more than that, of course, but it's just one more idea.
Nobody cares about it. Math is just sitting on Dalaran waiting for raids. Yes, and that's not very good.
Yeah.
Problem is, the long travel is boring. That's true. I do, however, think that it was fun going around and getting world buffs in Classic WoW. I
Not to me.
absolutely think so.
I think doing the world bosses and stuff like that were fun. I didn't like that we had to do it. And that's, at least to me.
I think collecting the consumables and stuff like that is great. And I think you could get rid of a lot of the friction. And yes, I know people are going to be upset about this, but I think that if you take world buffs out of Classic WoW, you take the world out of Classic WoW.
What I think they should have done instead was make it where there was more world buffs. And like there was interesting like quests, like daily or weekly quests you can do. That, you know, would reset weekly, of course. That you can do that activate the world buff like in a town or something like that. Or in an area, in a zone, whatever it may be. Like I think just adding a bunch of them and maybe just not letting them stack. You know what? Never mind. Let them stack. Have fun with it. See how like hardcore players can really min-max these buffs. If you give them like 2 hours, they can't be dispelled or anything like that. And see how many they can stack and like see how fast they like melt the raids. Like I think that'd be really fun.
The reason why most people went around to do different things was to get world buffs. When did you go out into the open world? For world buffs. That's the reason.
When you were max level and doing raids. Yeah.
Was amazing. I miss it. Yeah.
Ooh, that would be interesting too, to get like world PvP back in there. Is have it where like some world buffs you kind of got to fight the other faction for. And like I said, they should have it where you just stack it and keep getting more and more and more. Yeah, no, that. But yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. Like have a season of buffs. Like that would be so fun.
Bad take, Asmon? No, it's not. What is it? Why is it bad? You know, friend Nixion to teach us dragon flying in Classic? Yeah, there you go. Really, really shitty chores shouldn't be what's forcing you out into the world. I don't know. I don't think world buffs are as bad as people make them out to be.
They're not terrible, but it didn't exactly annoy me, I guess. Like it was more like tedious at best. After a while, like obviously the first kind of couple of times you do it, it's kind of fun doing world bosses. But like once your guild has it down, they have like pretty decent gear. It's not even fun. Like it's not a fight. Like you're just downing it to get the buff.
I think also that's why Season of Mastery was also boring, is because people liked being able to blow up the bosses and raid in 2 hours and then be done with it, and then still be
I agree.
You know, progressed and like have like competitive gear. Redesign world buffs? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, like I said, the season of buffs. That would be really, really cool. Add a bunch of, you know, outdoor bosses, like world bosses, just like add like freaking 50 of them and just like have it where they all stack.
Let's go ahead to
but have it on a timer, you know, so the quicker you down the boss, like the more buffs you're going to get. So that way, as you're progressing in the raids and stuff, getting better gear, you can get even more buffs, thus giving you an incentive to, you know, really push it.
Andy, I like your world buff Chrono Boon idea. Just store everything and use it at will. Exactly. If world buffs are the only reason to go out into the world itself sucks. It's not that it sucks, it's just that the content doesn't suck because people don't do it.
There's no incentive.
People don't do things because they're not min-maxed. That's why. People always do things because they are efficient. You always say take things out of games that are not fun. World buffs are not fun. Being required to log into the game at times not to play, but to get ready for the next time a raid was not good. Okay, so with a lot,
And if they do the, like I was saying, like have a bunch of world bosses that each have their own buff, is the spawn rate should be pretty much instant. It's just the same buff cannot be stacked. So if you kill a boss, that particular boss will respawn almost right away. Like I would say 3 minutes or something. Just so of course, you know, you're not getting spawned on right away. Give you time to get away. Anyways, like that boss will not give you a buff again that you can stack. You have to move on to the next world boss.
We think that raiding with world buffs was fun. I will go out and I will say it. I think that it was fun to go in there, Omega buffed, and
Oh yeah, because it's like you felt like crazy more stronger than you did without them.
Fucking destroy the bosses.
Yep.
100%, man. And yes, I do think that it was stupid that you had to sit there and fucking buff your character and you couldn't raid. Obviously, that was bad. But that is an acquisition problem, not a world buff problem.
Sure.
Getting them was not fun. Then change the way you get them.
I think it was interesting
Like
the
for
way you got them. Like it's as fun as it can get. It's a world boss.
example, like yes, purging world buffs is garbage. Just make it so you can't do that. Problem solved.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I already
Yeah.
said that. Yeah, make it
Yeah, you keep them after
dispellable.
death. Sure. Yeah, why not?
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah, and wiping became 10x worse with world buffs that make them persist through death. Yeah, what's the problem? If you go that dedicated summoners, it's not too bad to get.
Like it'd be cool if like I was just like still thinking on this idea of like season of buffs. It's like even while leveling, you can get like these kind of world buffs off of just doing like questing or something like that. They're just not as powerful, of course, as like the max level ones. But that way, you know, as you're questing, you can have these, you know, bunch of buffs adding up because you're completing these quest chains, and it's just making you feel like freaking badass, like going around one-shotting stuff at like level 20 or something. I think that'd be really cool.
Them and risk-free. Nothing's really risk-free, but yeah. Sorry, one fall with world buffs. It was the way it forced you to play after getting them. Yeah, I think world buffs should be a consumable. How many?
See, I don't think that would be that interesting, but you know, it could be. I just don't. On paper, I don't think it sounds that interesting.
MMOs have world buffs these days? Pretty much none of them. But I think that the issue that going out in the world would have, and I think also like giving people more quest lines like Scepter of the Shifting Sands would also get people to go out into the world if the rewards were very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many other games have world buffs. I have no idea. But I'm just talking about classic WoW. It was funny having to watch out for purgers in the city being flagged for PvP. Really? I don't know. I thought that was stupid.
Like, I'm still stuck on the season of buffs, man. That sounds super fun. I may make like a little video on it, see if Asman catches it, see if he can react to it. So maybe WoW will actually do something similar. Because it's like, I think about it like it's super easy to do, right? You just reuse the bosses in the game, maybe tweak their HP or something like that. The numbers, basically, which would be super easy, I'm assuming. Because you're not changing the mechanics, you're just changing how much health they have and how much damage they do. To reflect being a world boss. That and make like some quest chains that are, you know, like I said, weeklies. Or even like normal quests and normal questing. Like have them where they can give you buffs as well. That way you're getting buffs throughout your entire leveling experience, and then when you get to max level, that's when you want to min-max buffs. Like have hunt trains for buffs. So even if you aren't going to raid, you join the hunt train or this big raid of people, you go hunt all the bosses. Now you're just like uber powerful to where maybe you can go in and like solo the raid. So you have like these like 40 people all like so strong they could solo the raid. But then you imagine like, you know, there's going to be people who want to do like the record, like speed runs. Like who's the fastest clear? Like the guilds are going to have that. And it wouldn't take much effort. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that seems really cool. That would really get me to go back to play. 100%.
And I mean, even like, I mean, Kevin Jordan, original WoW dev, like said that wasn't really intended. It was just like an oversight. So it's not like this is some sort of like grand design of the game. I think purging people's world buffs and stuff like that are annoying.
Yeah, definitely agree. So Classic Plus has more problems than you think. I mean, Classic Plus isn't really a thing, so it doesn't really have any problems exactly. I think the whole mentality of expecting like new content is not mentality, but like the expectation of getting new content for Classic WoW. I think is just kind of you're wasting your time. like they have trouble paying their GMs, and you think they're gonna actually go through the trouble of adding new content? Like it's being not being pessimistic, it's being realistic. Like if WoW was known for putting, a lot of money into their games to just make it better, it would be different, but they're not. Dragonflight seems to be changing a bit with that, but I just, yeah, I just feel like you're being like you're on copium, hoping for that. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I think WoW could do a lot of things for their seasons. I really wish they would do them because I mean, even Diablo 3, like their new season, covered in a previous video, but that makes me want to go back and play it. And I have not wanted to play Diablo 3 in a long time, so it's like I think WoW can do that and make it even. Would be really cool too is make it free to play. Uh, I think the only problem, of course, would be the botting issue. But I think you're gonna have bots no matter what. So, who cares? Especially since it's a season, like a season. Like, who cares if there's like a lot of bots in a season, right? Or at least it would bother me if I saw them all the time, but at the same time, it wouldn't really bother me too much. It's not like I would quit the game because of it. So, yeah, no, free to play and make the seasons interesting. Like I said, I'll probably do like a quick video on like what I think seasons for classic could do to make it interesting, including like a season of buffs. Because I really think that's a cool idea.